Hey everyone, welcome back to Brain Boogers, where we dig deep into mental health and those life lessons waiting to be discovered. I'm MJ, and today we're exploring one of my favorite topics, openness, the visionary and innovator of the CANOE model, also known as the Big Five personality traits. Before we dive in, the content shared on this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and reflects my personal experiences and perspectives. I am not a psychiatrist, psychologist, therapist, or licensed mental health professional. This podcast does not provide medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you are experiencing mental health concerns or have questions about your well-being, please seek support from a qualified healthcare provider or mental health professional. Also, don't forget to subscribe and tap the notification bell so you never miss the latest insights. Share this episode with someone who could use a little inspiration. Your experiences help us all move forward together. Now, let's start with the basics. In psychology, openness to experience, sometimes just called openness, is all about a person's willingness to engage with new ideas, experiences, and ways of thinking. It's a key factor in appreciation of creativity as an art, emotion, and adventure, adaptability, or our willingness to embrace new ideas, and curiosity, or our drive to seek out novelty, all qualities that matter a lot in mental health, coaching, and personal growth. People high in openness are imaginative and unafraid to challenge the status quo. They're the ones who ask, what if, and why not? And just like your weight fluctuates throughout the day, the week, the month, and even your year, openness fluctuates throughout our lives, sometimes peaking in young adulthood, and it's never too late to cultivate it. So why does openness matter? High openness is linked to creativity, adaptability, and a willingness to learn. It's the trait that fuels innovation. Think of artists, inventors, or anyone who's ever dared to dream differently. Openness helps us connect with others, see new perspectives, and thrive in uncertain times. You might be wondering, how open am I? So, to provide insights, we look to psychologists who use self-report inventories like the CANOE or online Big Five tests. These tests ask about your preferences for variety, creativity, and new experiences. If you find yourself seeking out new music, ideas, or cuisines, or new life and new civilizations, or find yourself willingly tumbling down the rabbit holes of wow, or do a happy dance when you find a new nugget of knowledge, you may be high in openness. Welcome to the club. Before you ask, what is the CANOE? Consider, to those who value it, what gets measured gets managed. So the neuroticism, extroversion, openness, personality inventory revised, or CANOE, is a tool used to measure psychology based on the Big Five personality traits, or as I've been presenting it, CANOE. Remember, this is your expression of conscientiousness, agreeableness, neuroticism, openness to experience, and extroversion. Considering the openness spectrum, here's what each end of the spectrum typically represents. Individuals with low openness tend to be conventional, preferring routine and familiarity, practical, focusing on facts and concrete realities, resistant to change, being less interested in new ideas or unconventional experiences, and emotionally reserved, or less likely to explore or express complex feelings. Individuals with moderate openness tend to be comfortable with some change and new ideas, but also value stability, enjoy creativity or new experiences in certain areas, but not all, and balance practicality with curiosity. Individuals with high openness tend to be imaginative, enjoying fantasy, art, and creative pursuits, be curious, eager to explore new ideas, cultures, and experiences, be open-minded, willing to consider alternative viewpoints, be emotionally aware, attuned to inner feelings and emotions, and appreciate beauty, valuing art, music, and aesthetics. This spectrum is useful for personal growth, team dynamics, and mental health, because knowing where you fall helps you tailor your own coaching and self-improvement strategies. Understanding openness levels can improve collaboration and innovation, and it can influence coping styles, resilience, and openness to therapeutic interventions. What I like about the Neo-PyR is that it expands on each personality trait with 6 subcategories. For openness, they are 1. Openness to fantasy or imagination. 2. Openness to aesthetics or artistic interests. 3. Openness to feelings or emotional awareness. 4. Openness to actions or willingness to try new things. 5. Openness to ideas, intellectual curiosity. And 6. Openness to values or willingness to re-examine values. As I contemplated the 6 subcategories, I wondered which of these tends to get tripped up for me. And I think it's around values, where it can be difficult to express readiness to re-examine values and traditions. And while I wrestled with it, I realized that this podcast is birthed from the desire to re-examine values and traditions, and presented in a way that includes a village, where we all begin to consider what lowers our desire to examine our values and traditions. Maybe because we feel like traditions are untouchable. They are from everlasting to everlasting. But traditions are only as strong as the will of the individuals who wish to maintain it, either through blind faith or in your faith curiosity. And that's what I hope for here, that during this conversation, a spark ignites and we witness a blaze of understanding. Here's a quote from Jiddu Krishnamurti. "Tradition becomes our security, and when the mind is secure, it is in decay." Here's one more from Matthew Scully. "Sometimes tradition and habit are just that, comfortable excuses to leave things be, even when they are unjust or unwise." While it can vary by person and context, research and practical experience often suggest that openness to values is the most challenging for individuals to manage. Here are a couple reasons why that may be. 1. Deep roots. You see, values are often ingrained from early life through family, culture, and society. Challenging or re-examining them can feel threatening or destabilizing. 2. Identity and belonging. Values are tied to our sense of identity and group belonging. Adjusting them can cause internal conflict or social friction. 3. Cognitive dissonance. When new information clashes with existing values, it creates discomfort that many people instinctively avoid. Here are some soft examples, like if I said, "You actually can't see the Great Wall of China from space," or that some concoction of cola and cleaning solutions can't clean the fire-baked grease from the grooves of your pots and pans, prove me wrong, or that bats aren't blind, or that lightning does strike places more than once, or that you don't have to wait 30 minutes to swim after eating, and you use way more than 10% of your brain. And 4. Social pressure. There can be real consequences, social, professional, or familial, for shifting one's values or openly questioning them. For example, someone might find it easier to appreciate new art or try a new cuisine, openness to aesthetics and actions, than to reconsider a core belief about politics, religion, or ethics, openness to values. That said, the most difficult facet can be very personal. For some, emotional openness, openness to feelings, or intellectual flexibility, openness to ideas, might be the sticking point, especially if their environment discourages those traits. Openness to values is often the final frontier of personal growth for many people. It's one thing to experiment with new foods, music, or hobbies, but it's a whole different level to question or shift the beliefs and principles that have shaped your identity, relationships, and worldview. A few reasons why this facet is so sticky in self-development are: 1. Safety and stability. Core values provide a sense of safety and predictability. When those are challenged, it can feel like the ground is shifting beneath you. 2. Community ties. Changing values may mean risking disconnection from family, friends, or communities that share those values. 3. Self-reflection. It requires deep self-reflection and a willingness to sit with discomfort, which isn't easy for anyone. And 4. Cognitive rigidity. There's a natural human tendency to double down on existing beliefs, especially when faced with evidence that contradicts them, or confirmation bias. That said, the willingness to re-examine and possibly update your values is also where the biggest leaps in growth, empathy, and self-actualization happen. It's tough work, but it's what sets truly open and adaptable people apart. For example, faith communities often provide a strong framework of beliefs and traditions, so questioning or challenging those can feel like you're not just rethinking ideas, but also risking relationships, identity, and belonging. The process of re-examining long-held teachings, especially those learned in formative years, can be both liberating and unsettling. It's not just about intellectual curiosity, it's about navigating the emotional and social complexities that come with stepping outside the accepted narrative. My experience at church is a classic example of how personal growth often requires confronting the very systems that shaped us. It's brave work, and it's rarely linear. Sometimes, even acknowledging the urge to question is a big step, especially if it goes against everything you were taught about loyalty, faith, or authority. And once it happens, the transformation can spread like a wildfire. Once you break through in one area, especially something as foundational as faith or core values, it's like a chain reaction. Suddenly, other parts of your life that once felt confusing or rigid start to open up, and connections between beliefs, habits, and patterns become clearer. This wildfire effect is actually a hallmark of deep personal development. When you give yourself permission to question and grow in one domain, you're building the mental flexibility and confidence to do it elsewhere, whether it's in relationships, career choices, creative pursuits, or even in how you approach mental health. It's like turning on a light in one room and realizing you have the power to illuminate the whole house. It also makes you much more resilient and adaptable, because you know you can handle the discomfort of change and come out stronger on the other side. Here are some actionable ways you can begin to grapple with openness to values and meet your challenges head on. 1. Manage your vulnerability and curiosity. When you share your story about questioning and evolving your values, people often see that it's possible and survivable to rethink core beliefs. 2. Create a safe, non-judgmental space. Encourage open conversations where people can express doubts, ask tough questions, or share conflicting feelings without fear of shame or rejection. Remember that questioning values is a sign of personal growth, not betrayal. 3. Ask gentle, thought-provoking questions, first to yourself, then to others. Ask questions that invite reflection. When did I first start believing this? How does this value serve me now? Have I ever felt tension between this value and another part of my life? And take time to explore your answers. Sometimes the question is enough to spark change. 4. Normalize discomfort. You have to acknowledge that re-examining values can be uncomfortable, even scary. So reframe that discomfort as a natural part of growth, not something to be avoided. 5. Engage in reflective practices. Use journaling, meditation, or even voice notes. Process feelings and thoughts around values. Reflection helps us recognize patterns and gives us space to consider change. And 6, celebrate small steps. Recognize and affirm even small acts of openness, like admitting doubt, reading something new, or having a tough conversation. Growth doesn't have to be all or nothing. Awareness of the ways openness is expressed helps us manage the trait and maximize its benefits for our personal aspirations and efforts. Take some time to go for a walk, take a seat, or lie down and dig. where you'll discover your own openness to experience, be introspective about when it started and how it's fueled, and grow from your awareness and how it applies to you now. Like every part of us, we need to protect ourselves, heal harms, and develop better understanding and awareness for how we respond and react. Our openness can be hurt by trauma, betrayal, or repeated invalidation. If your ideas or feelings were dismissed growing up, you might learn to shut down. Healing involves safe spaces, supportive people, and self-compassion. In episode 4 on agreeableness, we touched on the attachment styles as a factor. So to recap, the 4 main attachment styles are 1. Secure, where you're comfortable with closeness and independence. 2. Anxious, where you're craving connection but often worried about rejection. 3. Avoidant, valuing independence and sometimes keeping emotions at arm's length. And 4. Fearful avoidant, a mix of both, wanting connection but fearing it at the same time. And here are some actionable growth tips because no matter your style, you can stretch your openness to experiences. Here, if you're secure, keep leaning into curiosity together. If you're anxious, take small, safe steps and celebrate progress. If you're avoidant, experiment with low-stakes novelty and give yourself compassion. If you're fearful avoidant, pair openness with self-soothing and grounding practices. Here's how openness and attachment styles are connected. If you're securely attached, you might find it easy to embrace new experiences and ideas. If you're more anxious, you might be open to new things if they bring you closer to others, but uncertainty can feel scary. If you're avoidant, sticking to routines might feel safer, and new emotional experiences could be uncomfortable. And if you're fearful avoidant, you might feel curious about new things, but also conflicted or cautious. Now, as you think on reflection and self-discovery, grab your journal or just pause for a moment and ask yourself, which attachment style do I mostly identify with? Secure, anxious, avoidant, or fearful avoidant? How comfortable am I with new experiences and relationships? How do I typically respond to new experiences or ideas in relationships? What emotions or thoughts show up when I step into the unknown? And how might my attachment style be influencing my openness? So let's connect this to the basic PH model, a framework for coping styles where openness aligns with the imaginative and cognitive channels. When we're open, we can adapt, reframe challenges, and find creative solutions. It's about seeing possibilities, not just problems. Basic PH is a coping framework developed by Dr. Lahad, a psychologist and psychotrauma specialist known for his methods of intervention and treatment of stress, and describes 6 core coping styles people use in response to stress or trauma. 1. Belief. This focuses on your spirituality, values, and meaning. 2. Affect. This is around your emotional expression. 3. Social engagement. This is about you seeking support from others. 4. Imagination. This is you dealing with your creativity, how you play, and fantasy. 5. Cognition. This is focused around logic, planning, and problem solving. And then 6. Physiological, where it shows up through physical activity, relaxation, or body-based coping. Each person tends to have a preferred coping channel, but can use all 6 to some degree. Some examples in which openness relates to basic PH are: high openness individuals are more likely to use imagination and often belief and affect channels. They may cope through creative expression, exploring new ideas, art, or reframing challenges. Low openness individuals may gravitate toward cognition, social, or physiological coping, seeking practicality, routine, and action-oriented strategies. Imagination in basic PH is especially linked to openness. Creative coping, like art, journaling, or storytelling, tends to come more naturally to those high in openness. Now, how is openness cultivated? Openness isn't just something you're born with, it can be nurtured. Start by asking questions, reading diverse books, or trying new activities. Mindfulness and travel also boost openness. The key is curiosity, staying willing to see the world through fresh eyes, and a willingness to challenge the status quo, business as usual, or the same old same. In our effort to seek out new life and new civilizations and to boldly go where we've never gone before, seeking openness through culture may be the ticket. You see, culture shapes how we express openness. Some societies prize tradition and conformity, while others celebrate individuality and experimentation. For example, Western cultures may encourage open debate, while Eastern cultures might value harmony over outspoken ideas. Openness exists everywhere, but it's colored by our environment. This got me wondering how Hofstede's theory and openness interact. Hofstede's cultural dimensions theory identifies 6 dimensions that describe how cultures differ. Hofstede's theory and the openness dimension come from different psychological traditions, but they intersect in interesting and useful ways, especially for understanding individuals within cultural contexts. The least relevant are masculinity versus femininity and indulgence versus restraint. The most relevant to openness are individualism versus collectivism, uncertainty avoidance, long-term orientation, and power distance. And here's how they interact. 1. Cultural context shapes expression of openness. You see, in cultures of high uncertainty avoidance, with preferring rules, predictability, and tradition, even individuals high in openness might feel pressure to conform, limiting how freely they express creativity or try new things. In low uncertainty avoidance cultures, where they are more comfortable with ambiguity and change, high openness traits are more likely to be expressed and valued. 2. Individualism versus collectivism. In individualistic cultures, high openness is often celebrated. Individuals are encouraged to express unique ideas, pursue novel experiences, and challenge norms. In collectivist cultures, high openness may be channeled into group harmony or shared innovation, but less into personal expression that disrupts social cohesion. 3. Power distance. In cultures with high power distance, accepting hierarchical order, expressing openness or questioning authority and proposing new ideas may be discouraged, especially in formal settings. In low power distance cultures, open dialogue and new perspectives are more welcome. And 4. Long-term orientation. Cultures with long-term orientation may value openness when it leads to adaptation and innovation for future benefit, but may also emphasize patience and tradition. Short-term oriented cultures might focus on immediate, practical benefits of openness, or stick to established ways. While we may limit these orientations to states and nations, we can also factor these into various aspects of our lives where our audience changes. Depending on where you live, you may experience any one or more of these in church, school, and the military. And here's where the social contract comes into play. The relationship between the social contract and openness is a thought-provoking lens for understanding both individual behavior and group dynamics. The social contract refers to the agreements, implied though not plainly expressed, or stated clearly and in detail, leaving no room for ambiguity, confusion, or doubt, within a society about norms, values, behaviors, and responsibilities. It's the unwritten rules that helps groups function. Think of expectations around honesty, respect, cooperation, and what's considered acceptable or taboo. Openness interacts with the social contract through 1. Openness as a driver of social change. You see, people high in openness are more likely to question, reinterpret, or challenge the social contract. They may advocate for new norms, push boundaries, and introduce fresh ideas, sometimes leading to cultural evolution or reform. Examples of this are artists, innovators, and thought leaders who often have high openness and play key roles in shifting societal expectations. Think mental health advocacy, new family structures, and diversity movements. 2. Openness and adaptation. High openness individuals adapt more easily when the social contract changes. Think during social upheaval, technological shifts, or evolving norms. Low openness individuals may feel discomfort, resist change, or prefer to uphold traditional aspects of the social contract. And 3. Openness and social harmony. While high openness can be a catalyst for progress, it can also create tension if new ideas clash with established norms. The balance between respecting the social contract and pushing its boundaries is vital for group cohesion. Too much disruption can cause instability, while too little stifles growth. Let's encourage that reflection on how cultural background shapes attitudes towards new experiences and ideas is a powerful tool in our personal development. Questions we can use to start are: think of a time you wanted to try something unfamiliar. How did your background or upbringing influence your decision? What messages did you receive growing up about risk taking or creativity? How were new ideas, art, or change viewed in your family or community? What are the traditions you value and ones you've chosen to question? How do you typically respond to new opportunities? What are the cultural beliefs that make you hesitant or excited about change? And when have you felt empowered or restricted by your cultural rules? Compare your approach to new experiences with friends or colleagues from different backgrounds. And as you do this, remember, taking a moment to step back and reflect helps understanding sink in. And don't forget to normalize and validate diversity, keeping in mind that there's no right way to approach new experiences. Cultural influences are natural and valuable, and trying something outside our usual comfort zone and reflecting on the experience can add the depth and knowledge we've been seeking. Now, let's consider how openness looks different depending on where you are. Professionally, it's brainstorming, innovation, and embracing change. Romantically, it's vulnerability, trying new things together, and honest communication. With your family, it's understanding generational differences and respecting new perspectives. And in society, it's tolerance, diversity, and social progress. In each space, openness can be superpower or a challenge depending on context, environment, and personal goals. As a superpower, openness involves 1. Creativity and innovation. You see, high openness fuels innovation, original thinking, and the ability to see possibilities others might miss. As a superpower, you're able to generate fresh ideas, artistic expression, and finding novel solutions to problems. 2. Adaptability. You see, openness helps people embrace change, learn from diverse experiences, and pivot when needed. As a superpower, it allows you to thrive in new environments, seize opportunities, and stay resilient during transitions. 3. Empathy and perspective taking. Openness fosters curiosity about others' perspectives and cultures, supporting empathy and deeper connections. As a superpower, it's about building bridges, understanding complex issues, and supporting inclusive environments. And 4. Personal growth. Openness drives self-exploration, willingness to question assumptions, and continuous learning. As a superpower, it pushes for rapid personal development, breaking through limiting beliefs, and evolving with intention. Okay, so now openness as a challenge. 1. It can be overwhelming and a distraction. You see, high openness can lead to chasing too many ideas at once, difficulty focusing, and being easily distracted by novelty. As a challenge, you'll find yourself struggling to follow through, feeling scattered, and having trouble setting boundaries. Too many irons in the fire. 2. Social friction. Being highly open in a traditional or risk-averse environment can create tension or misunderstanding. As a challenge, you may be facing resistance, feeling out of place, or being perceived as too different. 3. Difficulty with routine. Here's where routine and repetition can feel stifling to highly open individuals, making it difficult to stick to necessary habits or structures. You find it challenging when you are avoiding important but boring tasks or resisting necessary stability. And 4. Vulnerability to uncertainty. You see, openness means embracing ambiguity, which isn't always comfortable or practical. Sometimes structure and tradition are protective, and as a challenge, you may be feeling anxious in uncertain situations or lacking a sense of grounding. We want to celebrate openness as a strength, acknowledge the challenges, and encourage balance. So, take a moment to journal or share. When has your openness to new ideas been your greatest asset? When has it gotten in your way? And how do you find the balance between curiosity and consistency? Now, of course, there's a twist. Openness can be exploited. Manipulators might use your curiosity or willingness to trust against you. Oversharing can make you vulnerable to judgment or harm. It's important to pair openness with discernment and boundaries. Check out the episode on agreeableness where I talk about manipulators and setting boundaries. As I considered how openness can be weaponized, I started to wonder about the relationship of openness and toxic positivity. Toxic positivity is the insistence on maintaining a relentlessly positive outlook and rejecting or minimizing negative emotions, even when those feelings are natural, justified, or necessary for growth. It often sounds like, just stay positive, or don't think about the bad stuff. And I want to stress that on this podcast, we want to understand instead of suppress our emotions and adulterating openness. Toxic positivity adulterates openness through 1. Collective acceptance, not true openness. You see, openness means being available to all emotions and experiences, joy, sadness, anger, confusion, etc. Toxic positivity narrows this range, only allowing positive emotions and denying or suppressing anything uncomfortable. This is a distortion of openness. It masquerades as being open. I'm open to happiness, gratitude, optimism, but it actually closes off half of the emotional spectrum. 2. Denial of authentic experience. True openness values authenticity and the honest exploration of what's really happening, internally and externally. Toxic positivity encourages denial, avoidance, or minimization of real struggles. This blocks self-awareness and genuine connection. 3. Superficiality versus depth. Openness invites depth, exploring nuance, paradox, and complexity. Toxic positivity stays at the surface, skipping over complexity in favor of simple, feel-good mantras. 4. Stifling growth and healing. Growth often requires sitting with discomfort, processing pain, and learning from setbacks. Toxic positivity interrupts this process, pushing people to move on before they've fully understood or healed. And 5. Cultural and social pressure. In environments where toxic positivity is the norm, people may feel pressure to hide their true feelings, leading to isolation or shame, precisely the opposite of what openness is meant to foster. So consider, when have you felt pressure to just be positive? How did that impact your ability to process what you were really feeling? And what would true openness have looked like in that moment? Here are other ways in which openness to experience can be weaponized or exploited. 1. Manipulation through suggestion. People high in openness may be more receptive to new ideas or unconventional thinking. In the wrong hands, this can make them more susceptible to manipulation, persuasion, or even cult-like influence, especially if someone presents new ideas or beliefs as enlightened or exclusive. 2. Gaslighting or undermining stability. Because open individuals are willing to question norms and their own beliefs, someone could exploit this by constantly challenging their reality, making them doubt their own perceptions, memories, or values. 3. Boundary pushing. Others might take advantage of an open person's willingness to try new things by pressuring them into uncomfortable, unsafe, or unethical situations, social, romantic, or professional, under the guise of growth or adventure. 4. Overloading with novelty. In workplaces or relationships, Someone might intentionally overwhelm a highly open person with constant change, new projects, or shifting expectations, knowing they'll be less likely to push back or ask for structure. 5. Exploiting tolerance. Openness often comes with tolerance for diverse views and lifestyles. Bad actors can take advantage of this by pushing harmful ideologies or behaviors, counting on the open person's reluctance to judge or confront. 6. Emotional labor and token roles. Open people may be tapped for diversity, creativity, or out-of-the-box thinking, but sometimes this is tokenism or emotional labor, using their openness for show without real support or respect. And 7. Weaponizing vulnerability. If someone shares personal stories, unconventional ideas, or private experiences, hallmarks of openness, these can be used against them through gossip, shaming, or professional sabotage. Here's the bottom line. Openness is a gift, but it needs healthy boundaries and discernment. Being aware of these risks can help you and others navigate openness with both courage and self-protection. Healthy openness is about embracing new experiences, ideas, and perspectives, but doing so with self-awareness, boundaries, and discernment. It's the sweet spot between curiosity and self-protection where you stay flexible and receptive without losing your sense of self or safety. Here's what healthy openness looks like in practice. 1. Curiosity with discernment. You see, you're eager to learn, try new things, and hear different viewpoints, but you also critically evaluate what you encounter. You ask, does this align with my values and goals before adopting something new? 2. Boundaries and self-respect. You're willing to experiment, but you know and communicate your limits. You can say no to experiences or ideas that feel unsafe, manipulative, or just not right for you. 3. Growth, not people-pleasing. You try new things for your own growth, not just to fit in or avoid conflict. You don't let others pressure you into crossing your ethical or emotional boundaries under the guise of openness. 4. Reflection and integration. You reflect on new experiences, integrating what's useful and letting go of what isn't. You allow yourself to change your mind, but you don't feel compelled to accept every new idea or trend. 5. Emotional safety. You share your thoughts and feelings with people you trust, and you're mindful about who you're vulnerable with. You protect your mental health by balancing openness with self-care. And 6. Respect for others' boundaries. You're open to others' differences, but you also respect their right to say no or set limits. In short, healthy openness is about being receptive without being naive. It's staying open to growth, but also honoring your own needs, boundaries, and sense of self. It's a skill that can be developed and modeled, especially in mental health and coaching spaces. Now, let's wrap this up with some grace, forgiveness, and love. Ho'oponopono is a traditional Hawaiian practice of reconciliation, forgiveness, and restoring harmony, literally meaning to make right. Traditionally, it's a communal process involving open dialogue, confession, repentance, and mutual forgiveness, but it's also been adapted as a personal, meditative practice. Its core elements are responsibility, recognizing your role in conflicts or disharmony, repentance, acknowledging harm or mistakes with "I'm sorry," forgiveness, asking for and offering forgiveness, "Please forgive me," and gratitude and love, expressing thanks and love. "Thank you. I love you." Here's how Ho'oponopono and openness interact. 1. Openness as a prerequisite for Ho'oponopono. True engagement in Ho'oponopono requires openness to self-examination, to hearing others' perspectives, and to the possibility of change. The process asks you to be vulnerable, admit mistakes, and embrace new ways of relating, which aligns with the high end of the openness spectrum. 2. Ho'oponopono as an openness practice. Practicing Ho'oponopono cultivates openness by encouraging self-reflection, or the willingness to look inward and confront uncomfortable truths. Empathy, or the openness to understanding how your actions affect others. Letting go of rigid beliefs, or releasing old resentments or narratives that no longer serve. And embracing new emotional experiences, moving beyond guilt or blame to healing and growth. 3. Cultural openness. Engaging with Ho'oponopono, especially for those outside Hawaiian culture, invites cultural openness, respecting, learning from, and honoring indigenous wisdom. It's an opportunity to expand one's worldview and integrate cross-cultural healing modalities. And 4. Barriers to openness in Ho'oponopono. You see, individuals lower in openness may struggle with aspects of Ho'oponopono, resistance to self-examination or change, difficulty expressing or processing emotions, and a reluctance to adopt unfamiliar practices or beliefs. So, if you're ready to engage in deep self-reflection and emotional dialogue, I encourage Ho'oponopono as a structured exercise, facilitating reflection on relationships or situations needing healing. In this way, we step outside of our comfort zone, whether that's admitting fault, forgiving someone, or trying a new cultural practice. Also, with courage, love, and grace, explore. What's one area of your life where you're holding on to resentment or blame? Are you open to seeing it differently? How does your cultural background influence your willingness to forgive, apologize, or seek reconciliation? And what would it feel like to say, "I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you," even if it's just to yourself? In this, we see that openness supercharges Ho'oponopono. The more open you are to new perspectives, emotions, and experiences, the deeper the healing potential. Ho'oponopono expands openness. The practice itself can help break down barriers, soften rigid thinking, and open the heart and mind. So, how open are you feeling today? Remember, openness is a journey, not a destination. Nurture it, protect it, and let it guide you toward new possibilities. This week, take a moment to reflect. When you face something unfamiliar, do you hear your family's voice, your community's expectations, or your own curiosity leading the way? How might your cultural story be shaping your openness to new experiences? Have you ever felt held back or encouraged by cultural expectations? Thanks for tuning in to Brain Boogerz, where we dig deep into mental health, life lessons, and moving forward together. Remember, understanding openness involves a willingness to engage with new ideas and experiences, contributing to creativity and adaptability. The spectrum of openness ranges from low, conventional and restraint, to change, to high, imaginative and curious. The 6 subcategories of openness to experience are fantasy, aesthetics, feelings, actions, ideas, and values, which help in understanding the different dimensions of openness in individuals. Openness relates to the basic pH model of coping, where imaginative and cognitive channels are utilized by those with high openness to adapt and find creative solutions. Cultural backgrounds shape expressions of openness, highlighting differences between individualistic and collectivist societies, as well as the impact of uncertainty avoidance. Individuals high in openness can challenge social norms, driving social change, while those low in openness may prefer to uphold traditional norms. And we also address potential challenges, such as being overwhelmed and social friction, emphasizing the need for balance between openness and discernment. I challenge you this week. Try meditation, journaling, or even Ho'oponopono. Notice how it feels and let me know what comes up for you. If you found value in today's episode, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss the latest insights. Share this episode with someone who could use a little inspiration. Your experiences help us all move forward together. Next week, we'll be exploring extroversion, the 5th and final personality trait, its spectrum, superpower, and challenges, your basic pH, and Ho'oponopono. Until then, keep growing, keep questioning, and most of all, keep being you. Take care until next time, where we'll pick and dig in on Brain Boogerz.